The wind whispered through the tall pines that surrounded the tiny wooden cabin, nestled in the hills. It carried stories from far-off places, secrets from the past, and the heavy scent of rain that hadn't fallen yet. The cabin looked like it belonged to another time, but darkened with age, the stone chimney leaning slightly, and the porch sagging from years of silence and solitude. Inside, the fire crackled softly in the hearth, the only sound besides the wind outside. Sitting beside the fire was an old man, his hands weathered and scarred like the bark of the trees outside. His eyes were pale blue, faded like the sky before a storm. They stared not at the flames, but through them, seeing something far beyond the walls of that room. At his feet, curled up in a tight ball of fur, was a dog, not young, but not quite old either, a mix of shepherd and retriever, with fur like smoke and eyes that mirrored his master's quiet, watchful, knowing. The old man spoke rarely, but when he did, it was often to the dog. Storm's cumin, Rust, not just the kind that weights the ground. Rust lifted his head, ears twitching. He didn't bark. He never barked unless it was important. The old man leaned forward, feeding another log into the fire. The sparks jumped and danced like fleeting memories. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of time. Outside, the wind grew stronger, rattling the window panes and brushing leaves across the roof like fingertips. He reached for the tin cup beside him, sipped the lukewarm tea, and stared at a photograph on the mantel. A younger version of himself stood beside a woman, both smiling, arms around a boy holding the same dog, much younger, with brighter eyes. 20 years, he whispered. 20 years since that day. Rust shifted uneasily and wind, sensing the heaviness in his master's tone. "You remember him, don't you?" the old man asked, turning to Rust. "You were just a pup then." The dog's tail gave a single thump, slow and solemn. The old man stood, joints creaking like old floorboards. He shuffled to the window and pulled back the curtain. The forest was dense, shadows stretching across the hills like silent watchers. In the distance, a flicker of light, too steady for lightning, too early for stars. He narrowed his eyes. "Someone's out there," he murmured. "Too early for hikers, and no one comes this way." Rust was already on his feet, alert and tense. The old man moved to a cupboard near the door, pulling out an old rifle. He checked it instinctively, the way a soldier checks his weapon even after peace, the way a man never truly forgets. "I am not looking for trouble," he said, more to himself than the dog. But trouble always seems to find its way back. Rust padded silently to the door, eyes fixed on the trees beyond the window. The old man opened the door slowly, stepping out onto the porch. The wind greeted him with a stronger push this time, colder, hungrier. He scanned the darkness. The light he'd seen was gone, but the feeling remained like being watched by something that remembered. You well but didn't care if you remembered it. The forest around them was no stranger to stories. People in town often spoke of the hills like they were alive, mysterious, even vengeful. But the old man never listened to town talk. He had his own ghosts to keep him company. He sat on the porch chair, gun resting across his lap, Rust at his feet once again. The wind howled a little louder, and somewhere in the woods a branch snapped not from the wind. Rust growled low in his throat. "Easy, boy," the man said, patting his head. "Let's see what this night brings." And the night brought more than wind. By midnight, the fire inside the cabin was just embers. But the old man hadn't moved from the porch. His eyes were fixed on the trail leading into the trees. Trail few remembered and even fewer dared to take. Then, suddenly, a sound soft, barely there, but unmistakable. Footsteps. Rust stood, body stiff, eyes glowing in the dim light. The old man raised his rifle slightly, voice steady. "Who's there?" No answer. Just the wind, and then a figure. It emerged slowly from the woods, walking with a limp, covered in dirt and leaves, as if the forest had tried to swallow him but failed. A man, young, bearded, clothes torn. He looked up, and in the flickering porch light, the old man saw the face. His heart stopped. It couldn't be. It was impossible. Eli, he whispered, the name torn from his throat like an old wound reopening. The young man swayed, blood on his temple, eyes glassy. He tried to speak, but only one word came out before he collapsed. Father. Rust barked once. The old man dropped his rifle and ran to the bueno, the man who lay crumpled at the edge of the porch. He gathered him in his arms. 20 years. 20 years of silence, of letters returned, of questions unanswered. And now, here he was, his son, and the wind whispered again. This time, it didn't sound like wind at all. Ashes in the rain. The rain finally came, not in sheets, but in soft, roof-like, gentle knocks from forgotten hands. The sky had turned to ash, dimming the world into a blur of gray and sorrow. Inside the cabin, the old man knelt by the sofa, staring at the barely breathing body of his son, Eli, alive, after 20 years of silence. Rust sat beside him, eyes fixed on the boy's face. The dog's ears perked at every groan, every shift in breathing, like he was trying to understand if this was real or just the forest playing tricks again. The old man gently wiped the blood from Eli's forehead with a damp cloth. His hands trembled more than before, but he kept going. I thought you were dead. I buried you, in my mind, 1,000 times. Eli stirred, mumbling in a voice rough like gravel. Don't let them in. The old man froze, but Eli had already slipped back into unconsciousness. He pulled the blanket tighter over him, then sat down heavily in the rocking chair across the room. The fire had died to a soft glow. He didn't feed it. Something colder had settled inside him now. Rust stood suddenly, ears pointed at the door. A noise, not footsteps, something softer, like breath. The old man grabbed his rifle and walked to the window. The rain painted streaks across the glass, distorting the trees outside. But he saw it just for a moment. A figure, standing at the edge of the woods, still, watching, then gone. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. He'd seen enough to know that wasn't just a passing hiker. Rust, he said without turning, stay by him. He stepped out onto the porch, letting the rain fall on his shoulders. It didn't feel like rain. It felt like warning. Who's there? He called out. If you're looking for trouble, you've come to the wrong place. Silence. Then, from deep within the woods, you should have stayed forgotten, old man. He froze. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. The old man clenched the rifle tighter. That voice didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone long gone. Someone buried. He turned and went back inside, locking the door behind him. By morning, Eli had woken, weak, pale, but awake. His voice was dry, cracked. Water. The old man brought him a cup. Eli drank slowly, wincing. What happened? The old man asked. Eli didn't look at him, just stared at the ceiling. They found me. Who? They called themselves the Ash Circle. A group. A cult, maybe. I don't know what they are anymore, but they're not human. Not all of them. The old man's heart sank. You got mixed in with those mountain people? He asked. No, not at first. I was working construction. Then one job took me near Black Hollow. He paused, breathing hard. I heard things, saw things, people disappearing. Then I got too close. His voice trembled. They marked me, Dad. And when I tried to run, he lifted his arm, showing a scar like a burn in the shape of an eye. They followed. The old man took a slow step back. The mark pulsed faintly. Rust growled deep in his throat. They won't stop, Eli whispered. They never stop. The old man looked at the window. The trees were too still. The wind had stopped. They were here last night, he said quietly. Eli shut his eyes. Then we don't have much time. That night, the old man sat by the fire, polishing his old hunting knife. Eli slept restlessly, muttering names, numbers, and places that didn't make sense. Rust wouldn't rest. He paced the room, tail low, ears twitching at sounds only he could hear. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps, then nothing. The old man didn't move. Then the whisper. Just one word, so soft it sounded like wind. Eli. The old man rose slowly, walking to the door. Don't, Eli gasped, suddenly wide awake. It's not them. It's it. The old man froze.
What?
They sent her first. The one that sounds like Mom. The air grew colder. The fire flickered. Rust, wind. Another knock? Firmer. The old man stared at the door. Eli, he whispered, Mom's gone. Buried under that oak tree. She ain't coming back. I know, Eli said, voice shaking, but it sounds just like her. Then they heard it. A woman's voice. Open the door, love. It's me. The old man's knees buckled. That voice. Exactly the same. Every tone, every breath, but he didn't move. He couldn't. Rust barked loud and sharp. The woman's voice stopped. Then, silence. No footsteps. No rustling leaves. Nothing. Just silence. At dawn, they found something on the porch. A small pile of ash. In the shape of a hand, the old man stared at it for a long time. Then, without a word, he turned and looked at Eli. You brought the storm with you, boy, he said quietly. Eli nodded. And it's just beginning. Beneath the roots, the forest was no longer silent. By midday, strange symbols had appeared on the trees etched deep. Bleeding sap-like wounds. The old man stood quietly on the edge of the clearing, staring at the fresh markings. Rust barked once and circled restlessly. Inside the cabin, Eli sat beside the fire, clutching a small leather pouch he had refused to open until now. His hands shook as he untied it, revealing a single silver key and a folded piece of yellowed paper. He unfolded it slowly, his breath catching. What is it? The old man asked, stepping inside. It's a map, Eli said, his voice low. To the root chamber? The old man stiffened. It came from the old days, from stories whispered by loggers and hunters who never returned. You went looking for it, the old man muttered. That's why they marked you. Eli nodded. It wasn't greed, I thought. If I found the chamber, maybe I could finally understand why Mom, he stopped, unable to finish. The old man's face darkened. She didn't just die, Eli. She was taken. The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Rust let out a low growl and stepped toward the door. They're coming back, Eli said. We have to go now. They moved fast through the trees. Following the map, Eli had risked his life to steal. Roots coiled like veins around stones. Shadows shifted even when there was no wind. Time felt strange in those woods, like something was watching, waiting. Then they found it. An ancient door, half buried beneath a gnarled oak. Symbols pulsed faintly on its surface. The old man inserted the key. The door opened with a sigh. Inside, the tunnel descended steeply into the earth. The air was heavy, warm, and humming with an energy that made their skin crawl. Rust didn't hesitate. At the bottom, a circular chamber glowed dimly with blue light. In the center stood a stone pedestal with a single item, a lock of hair. Tied with a red ribbon, the old man froze. That's hers. A voice echoed from the shadows. You should have left her. You should have forgotten. From the walls emerged figures cloaked in ash faceless, floating just above the ground. Eli stepped in front of his father. Take me, let him go. The leader of the ash figures laughed. You still don't understand. This isn't about you. It never was. They advanced. Rust growled. Then, without warning, he charged. Light exploded as Rust collided with the leader. His body engulfed in fire, but not burning. For a moment, time stood still. And then everything shattered. The last fire. The explosion from Rust's attack destroyed the chamber, trapping the ash figures beneath collapsing stone. The old man woke outside the tunnel, barely alive. Eli lay beside him unconscious, but breathing. Rust was gone. They searched for hours, calling, hoping. Only silence answered. That night, He gave everything, didn't he? The old man nodded. He always did. The trail home. Weeks passed. Eli stayed in the cabin, healing slowly. The forest grew quiet again. One morning, the old man woke to find paw prints in the mud leading to the porch. A bark echoed in the distance, familiar, steady, strong. He smiled, eyes wet. Welcome home, Rust. The wind at last whispered peace.